Hi guys, so my name is Brielle Lampf and I'm an online opinions editor, and I'm here with Aiden Rood and Gina Liu, who started the initiative for students for later start times, and we're just going to be talking about all the progress they've been making. So hi guys, we have a couple questions for you today, and this question is for both of you guys, so you can both answer. Gina, you can start. So what motivated you to launch students for later start times?
So Aiden and I come from kind of like different backgrounds in terms of starting it. So Aiden should definitely add on after me, but personally comes from like my background of being part of SJ for so long and also starting my student voice committee last year. So part of what I did as president last year was that I made a student voice committee for my class, and I also posted surveys. From the results of those surveys, we realized that a lot of the student body really like the later start times we had last year. Well, of course, we can't go back to a 9:45 a.m. start time. It's kind of a push. We kind of see that the possibility of changing of our schedule, it's possible, and we've also seen the positive effects of that as well. So just coming from the need to advocate for a student body and their voice, I kind of decided to take a stand and to push for later start times.
That's great. And Aiden, what about you? Like, what motivated you to launch this with Gina?
Yeah, so I've been involved in, or interested in, I should say, the issue of start times for a while, more from a political perspective. I was launching a local campaign for school board where school start times were one of the issues involved. I've been following the issue and the research around it for a long time. Um, and, as I kind of saw all the impacts that school start times have and recognized how important it is that we listen to scientists and medical professionals who are recommending and have been recommending for many years that teenagers should start school later. I kind of saw that and saw the opportunity for change, especially right now, having already had later start times last year, and with lots of things changing in education right now, coming out of COVID, it seemed like the right time to make a push for change from the political perspective. So I wanted to get involved and kind of bring together our different not approaches, but angles of wanting to get involved, where Gina had a lot of involvement with student government and student voice, and I had some more involvement on the Board of Education and policy making side of things. So we could bring those together and say, here is the student voice for this policy initiative, and take it to the Board of Ed, take it to our administrators, and say, here's what students are looking for, and hopefully make some change.
Wow, that's great. So, Gina, so when did you guys, get together and talk, and like when was like the time period where you both decided that this is something that we're going to do?
I believe I've been personally thinking about it back in May, June, and then I reached out around May, June. I think it was June as well, because around that time I had my last meeting with Dr. Perry and my student voice committee, and part of the thing that we brought up was that kids wanted to see later start times for next year, and we were kind of like playing around with the possibility of pushing for that. And I thought, well, why not? We're kind of in this transition period. And then also, I believe we one of us like contacted each other. I'm not sure who was who, but I also saw that Aiden's dad was also running for Board of Education. Part of his promises was to push for later start times. I think Aiden can talk a little bit more on that angle.
Yeah, so I was launching a campaign for Board of Ed, as I mentioned. I got my dad to run for the board to advocate for some different policy priorities in our schools, and one of them was school start times. So yeah, that's one of the reasons Gina and I connected. And as she said, I think it was in June that we kind of started working together, working out the idea, getting a group together. We can talk more about this later, but we have a lot of great members of our organization who have helped put things together. And I think it was either the end of June or the beginning of July where we had our first kind of action, speaking at a Board of Ed meeting and organizing in that way.
Yeah, so Aiden, so what was like the timeline for all of this? So you said that you guys, started meeting up in like late June, early July. So once you met up, like what was the process going forward from there?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, going back even before that, I'd just note that a key part of the timeline is the fact that the district has been discussing this for years. School start times all the way back in 2013, we actually moved them earlier. So that was a point of discussion. And then in the years following that, some people were saying we should go back or even go later than we had been. So it's been something that's been talked about for years before we started advocating on the issue. But once we got together in June, Gina and I kind of started talking about ideas, got together a plan, and then reached out to other student leaders at East and at West as well in the district, formed our core group of people to help organize things. I think it was, like I said, either the beginning of June or sometime in July, I think, that we first had an action event where we got a bunch of students to speak at a Board of Education meeting during public comment, kind of explaining different perspectives on school start times and urging the board to take some kind of action, and administrators, Dr. Malash was there as well. And then from there, I think the timeline kind of carried on with different actions like that for a little while. We went to another board meeting. We had a virtual rally connected to one of those, different things like that. And then it would be in August that Gina and I had a meeting with administrators, started to hear about some plans for a committee. And then that brings us to right now, where we have kind of a process unfolding to look at school start times and potentially make a change in the months ahead. So I think that's kind of how things have played out over time. Gina, if I missed anything, feel free to add.
Yeah, that sounds pretty much about right. So if you remember the surveys in the beginning of the school year, that was promised by, so Dr. Moore is currently pushing for later start times. He's in the head of the committee for later start times. And he did promise to, for example, in that August meeting, to put out like a survey around the beginning of the school year to form a committee, which he has done. We had our first meeting last month, and then our next one is actually going to be on November 12th.
Yeah, and I would just, add that I think the committee is really taking a good approach, looking at start times, not even necessarily later start times. I think that's where it's going to go, but I think Dr. Martin has put together a very objective kind of approach, looking at the data, looking at data not only from around the country and different science studies, but also data from our district, from the survey, and really taking an objective look at how families feel, how researchers feel, what the facts are around start times. Should they be later? Should they be earlier? I certainly hope not, but what should start times be? And that committee is doing great work, and we'll be continuing to do that work to look at the issue.
Okay, great. And then Gina, so did you guys have any expectations going forward with this when you started presenting your ideas? I mean, were there any expectations? Did you have more of an optimistic outlook, a pessimistic outlook? Like how are you guys feeling going into this?
I think we have very just realistic outlook. I don't think it was either optimistic or pessimistic, but we were just prepared for any of the possible outcomes. We did, for example, like play with the idea of like, let's say that I think we were mostly like expecting for there to be like at least some sort of pushback from the board, at least a bit more from what we expected. Because I remember going into the August meeting thinking that, okay, like we need to prepare like all like different talking points, all the questions they're gonna ask. And we went in, they're like, we completely agree with you. And we're like, wow, we did not plan this far ahead. So I think that overall, we just kind of assess what's going on and we plan next steps. But we're kind of more of like the prepare for a worst possible outcome type mindset.
Yeah, I would concur that I think everything's gone better than we could have ever expected. Not that, we didn't expect that good things could happen, but, making change is never easy. And I think while we haven't made a change yet, I think the process to get people to listen, get people, whether it be people in the community or people in positions of leadership and power, to listen to students, listen to the community members around them. It's gone more smoothly than we really could have ever imagined. As Gina said, we've prepared all kinds of rebuttals and counter arguments that go unused, not because there isn't, thoughtful discussion of the issue, but just because, it hasn't really been some kind of heated debate. It's been a conversation where everyone involved, even if they have concerns about later school start times, even if they may not support later school start times, everyone involved is looking for the best thing, to do the best thing for the kids, families, teachers, parents, residents of Cherry Hill and the stakeholders in the Cherry Hill Public Schools. So yeah, I definitely think that we went into it with realistic expectations, as Gina said, and we're really happy with what's happened so far.
Yeah, so I think so from what I'm hearing, like it was realistic, and things have gone better, but were there any challenges or backlash that you guys have faced in presenting these ideas?
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly heard from people who disagree. It's not it's a political issue. It's really more of an educational issue, but because of the fact that it involves the Board of Education and different elected and appointed leaders, it is something that gets politics involved. And when there's politics involved, there's always going to be people who disagree. And so certainly, we've had conversations where, not everyone is on the same page, but I think that really we haven't had any kind of, bad moments. Everything, like I said, has been good faith discussion, really surprisingly so. I think you would usually expect there to at least be one or two, times where people are, going to come at things with personal attacks or getting too political with something like this. And I really haven't experienced that. I don't think we've experienced that too much. So yeah, I think it's been a good experience overall, even though there certainly have been disagreements.
Yeah, I would definitely say, of course, there's like kids who brought up well, are you going to push back the end times then? Even looking through the surveys, the issues that you would imagine come that people bring up or brought up, and a lot of times they're really value issues as well. But from my perspective, something that a bit of problem solving and a bit of and I would say a bit of like education, because sometimes there's some information that's kind of like misinformation almost. I would say, for example, like kids just have to, work harder, or like if you push back start times, then they'll just take advantage of that time and they won't sleep earlier, stuff like that, which which are understandable, but research has actually shown the opposite. So I think that nothing that a bit of good conversation, nothing that a bit of good problem solving won't solve.
Okay, great. And then I know you guys had said that there is a committee going on right now. So like what is the progress update on that? I know you said that November 12th, I believe, is the next meeting. So are you guys just discussing like what the plan is going forward? Is there any like action going to be taking place? What's the update with that committee, Gina?
So I don't want to like go way into detail, because it is technically just a lot of different people are involved in it, and I'm just one part of it. I don't want to give out information that it's not saying that like there's anything like really like confidential stuff going on. It's just that we've been looking at, for example, the survey data. We don't want to give out anyone's like personal information when their responses, stuff like that, right? But so there's going to be 3 meetings. One it's October, November, and December. The hope is that we can get a proposal put together to present to the board after the December meeting. So the first one was really just to get people on the same page in terms of research and their understanding of the subject, because not everyone is is on the same page. There's a lot of stakeholders. There's parents who are in the committee. There's different levels of schools, representatives from East, from West, from Carusi are there. There's people who who deal with busing in there, as well as people who have like experience with special needs kids in there, all sorts of different stakeholders. So That was the first meeting. Our next meeting is going to be about looking at potential, like what issues there are and what potential solutions we can put together. And then I believe the December one will all about like finalizing the proposal. We're hoping that we can get the proposal out around January. That's the current timeline, but of course things are subject to change. It's a long meeting. It's a lot of stuff being done in these meetings as well. It's like 8:30 to like 2:30. So it's around like 6 hours. A lot of great stuff being done.
Wow, yeah, it's crazy just hearing you guys talk about that, because I'm just picturing like you guys just texting each other, hey, you want to do something for like school start times, try to change this. And now like you guys are here with like meeting with adults and actually making change in that way. So I just have like one more question for you guys. So and this can apply to both of you, and you can go first if you want. So is there anything that you have like learned, whether it's in regard to later start times or not, that like you want to share, like just about like the topic in general, or just about how students can push for a change, whether it be with start times or something else?
Sure. So I'll say two things, one about start times specifically and one more broadly. When it comes to school start times, and I guess this really applies more broadly too, but I was really just surprised by how much there was to learn, how much I was able to learn when you really dug into the data and the science and the research and news articles, all these things. I'd heard about school start times for years, before I even lived here, all different places from all different sources. School start times is something that's been discussed for a long time. And I had a kind of superficial understanding of it just from reading a few articles and hearing things. And then at some point, I just decided that I was really interested and wanted to take a deeper dive. And there were so many issues that I had no idea existed. I really did not come into this thinking, oh, wow, there's an impact to be had here on car crash rates. So that's something that was really surprising to me. For those who don't know, school start times, when they're later, we actually see a reduction in teens' car crash rates. And that's something that I'd never heard of, but something that I learned a lot about. And, now I've read through like multiple academic studies on it and learned all this information. So really just whether it be school start times or another issue, there's always a lot more than you might see on the surface. And we really were able to just dig into this issue and find all these different perspectives and ways it impacts different groups of people. And that's been really great. And then secondly, just more broadly, when it comes to pushing for change, I think that really you just have to take the initiative and go and do it, even if you're not sure how, even if you don't know where to start. If you kind of just find some place to start and learn as you go. Really, this initiative was just students. It was just Gina and I at first, and then we brought others in, and we were able to go from really just a text conversation, as you kind of alluded to, up to meetings, up to actions, up to as you said, being in these big meetings and actually having a chance to influence the whole district's policy. Since then I've engaged in similar initiatives, kind of just saying, here's an idea, can we do something about this? Anyone can do that, and anyone should do that, because it doesn't take an elected position or some huge nonprofit to make a difference. It can just be you and your friends speaking up about something you believe in. So everyone should take that chance.
Just kind of building off what Aiden said, I agree with the later start times, where I've heard about it, but like really delving into research, it's crazy the amount of research there is. And then like in like decades, like Aiden said, and still a lot of districts still follow the traditional method of waking up before 7 o'clock a lot of the times. But also just talking more broadly on, like advocating for change and whatnot, I would say that a lot of it has to do with having the right conditions as well. I am very grateful for the board being very open-minded to our thoughts. I'm very grateful to having, a great group of core group members to work with, like I just want to like list their names because like they like have done a lot of work and like they're a great group of people. Like let me see, actually. I just want to list them all. Like Isa, Crystal Ye, Grant Yoon, Christina Weiss actually from West, and also Kira Mutadil. Like they've been like working on, been with us for like since like June basically. They've also put a lot of work into this as well. I want to thank them. And also just that as long as you have the right conditions, where it's just like I feel like if there's any other year, like it would have been so much like harder, but because it was COVID and we like saw this opportunity and we took it, I think that's also what kind of like caused this to happen. And also having a plan is probably the most important thing, you know, like if you like, yes, it's important to have a goal, but having a plan to get to that goal is also important in realizing your dreams. And I think that just seeing your efforts like affecting other people and your like the effort you put into is really coming alive in your community and creating a better change for other people is really something that is unparalleled. And I think that makes it all the worthwhile, you know. I mean, Ina and I have like spent countless hours on this already. And it's tiring. It's a lot of work. You're gonna have to put a lot of work into this. You have to commit, you know. But I just think that seeing it come alive is unlike anything else.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really inspiring to listen to you guys. Thank you guys so much for sitting down and talking to me and Eastside about all of this.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.